Welcome to the Third Eye Show, which brings you ancient wisdom as well as cutting-edge investigations into the mysteries of the universe. The Third Eye Show celebrates our diversity, like the unique beauty of each individual wave, and our oneness, like the magnificent ocean from which each wave emerges. We are all one in spirit as we live on this earth plane. The third eye is said to be able to see into the spiritual and psychic realms. At a time when our lives, our country, and our planet are undergoing intense transformations, we will explore topics that will fascinate, enlighten, and empower. Join us as we witness the thrilling ways spirit manifests in our daily lives and the varied paths we choose to create heaven here on our earth. The Third Eye Show is created and offered in love and light.
We are thrilled to announce that the Third Eye Show is now available to everyone on the planet, completely free of charge via the internet. From the beginning, our intention in creating this 100% volunteer public service project has been to purposefully observe spirit at work in our lives, empower personal growth and happiness, inspire free expression and creativity, promote peace and global consciousness, celebrate diversity, and activate thought, reflection, and positive exchange. Spirit has guided us every step of the way, connecting us to whatever we've needed, from technical assistance to fascinating presenters. We are grateful to Spirit and to all of our talented and generous guests for their contributions. Television can be inspiring and positive rather than violent and negative, and the Third Eye Show is here to prove it. And it's clear that people like to think and want to be empowered because we keep on growing. So now we're asking for your help. Please help us spread the word to everybody, especially people who don't have cable or aren't in our viewing area, that our shows can be watched absolutely free of charge by anybody anywhere on Earth, simply by going to either Google Videos or the Third Eye website. Let's get the word out there. You enjoyed our last show on dreams and let us know that you wanted more. So tonight, Stella Colpile, Patty McDonald, and Lucia Reed spend the hour discussing dreams.
So I guess what we'll talk about first, or start off with, is talking about some very common dream symbols and metaphors. Now, dreams that are common to a lot of us.
So what do we mean by metaphors? What do you mean by that, Patty?
A metaphor is something that is symbolic of something else.
Ah, okay.
So, in other words, if you have a dream about, well, the first one thing, which is very common about flying, that can often be a metaphor. It could be escape, escaping a situation you're in, or freedom, just being free, or it could be, and actually it could be an out-of-body experience.
Mm-hmm.
You could be actually leaving your body during your sleep and going to other places, which is pretty interesting.
So when we talk about dream metaphors, what we're saying, for example, the flying, we're talking about how does that make you feel? What does that symbolize to you? So for most of us, flying, for example, as you said, Patty, makes you feel free. You feel wonderful. The thought of being able to fly.
I love that dream.
Yeah. So if you're having that kind of a dream, that's probably what it means to you. That's what the metaphor, the symbol is commonly, and that's probably what you're dreaming about, is feeling free, a sense of freedom, exhilaration, that sort of thing.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was. I used to dream that a lot when I was a kid. But I suppose for someone else, it could be something fearful, I guess. I think anything's possible. But I think that's the most common meaning.
Sure. So that's what we're offering today, are just the most common meanings. different, the same symbol is going to mean three different, or could
It
very
could mean,
possibly
yeah.
mean three different
I was
things
just going
to
to
three
say
different
that
people.
symbols can be so packed. They can mean
Yeah.
so many different things, but there are some commonalities.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it may vary for you, but that's what we're going to talk about today, at least the beginning here.
Yeah, we just want to
Yeah.
touch on
Symbols.
some of the most common dream symbols. These are things that I think everybody dreams at one time or
I think
another,
that one
right?
is pretty
Like
universal.
flying, right.
Like flying, yeah, the flying one.
Okay.
And also dreaming about houses. What do you think that means?
Well, traditionally, dreaming about a house, when you dream about a house, you're dreaming about yourself. So the condition in which you find the house is significant. If you're going into rooms you didn't know about and finding treasures, maybe you're uncovering new things about yourself and learning new and wonderful things about yourself. If you're dreaming that the room is kind of bleak and cobwebby, or going up the stairs, ascending is taking you into some place that's sort of bleak and cobwebby, maybe you're feeling that afraid to pursue a higher consciousness, that sort of thing. Usually they talk about, ascending. If you're going up the stairs, we're talking about your higher consciousness. Descending, we're talking about your subconscious
Right.
levels.
Right.
And
A
so,
lot of times, like a cellar, the cellar in a house will represent your subconscious. A lot of times, dreams that I have, these monster things come out of the cellar.
there you go.
They all of a sudden pop out. And,
Things that are hidden
right.
in the set, which is
So that's
Right.
talking about
subconscious.
yourself. So what is the condition of the house? How does the house feel to you?
And that's really the basic question, I think, in all dreams. Not so much what it was about, although that certainly is important, but really, how did you feel? Did you feel, was it kind of a bummer of a dream, or did it make you feel good, or was it a little bit scary or uncertain? So it's really, how that
Were you
feels.
uncovering treasures, or were you
Yeah.
going into rooms filled with cobwebs or ghosts, that sort of thing?
Yeah, because that can say a lot. And what about water? What do you think about dreams about water, Stella?
Well, to me, and I'm going to talk about this later in the show quite a bit, but the water realm oftentimes it can represent the collective consciousness, or it can represent our unconsciousness. Water is the feminine realm. I now associate it, and one of the things I was going to talk about is that we can actually start to create an encyclopedia of our own symbols. And for me now, the minute I am at the ocean in a dream, I'm with the goddess. For me now, the ocean realm, the water realm, represents the goddess or the divine feminine. It can represent your intuition. So again, there's a lot of, and what is the water like? Are you having a storm? Or are you in the blue sea frolicking?
Is it calm? Yeah.
Right. Some people feel like the watery realm associates with past lives because, again, of the element of the subconscious. So it can mean a lot of different things.
And I think it pertains also to emotions. I think that's sort of a universal symbol for that.
So how do you feel about
Yeah.
going into the water? If the
Are you
water
afraid of the
represent-
water?
Exactly.
Yeah, if
Are
you're
you
afraid
feeling
of the
kind of
water?
hesitant to go
Yeah.
into that water? Maybe there's some emotions that you're feeling uncomfortable about exploring.
That's right.
Yeah, or I guess on a more literal level, I mean, in real life, what if you're afraid of water?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, that
Yes,
could be
that could certainly be.
almost be a nightmare, kind of a nightmarish situation.
Or Stella, for your husband,
you have a
water is
phobia?
his native element.
That's right.
He never feels more comfortable than when he's
Right.
in water. So
Bob
for
is
Bob,
a scuba diver,
That's
so
right.
the
Oh,
water
yeah.
realm
Diver.
is his realm.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
re-
were he to dream
literally.
about water, he'd be right at home.
Yes.
I would too, yeah. Okay, another one is dreaming about gardens. And I guess that's a pretty broad, I think in general, it's about, new growth, or it could be about abundance, things flourishing in your life. But I guess it also depends on what's in the garden. I mean, do you like what you see? Is it filled with weeds?
Right.
'Cause that could
Right.
mean
That's
if,
right.
if it's filled with weeds, maybe there are things that you need to get rid of in your life.
Right.
People or things.
And
need to
also
get
our
rid of.
flowers in bud, which aren't
yeah.
aren't blooming yet, are things in full bloom. Buds can mean new growth, something that hasn't come into its fullness yet.
Right,
yeah,
or
that's
fruition
totally
if
important.
if
Yeah.
the garden is at the height of its
Right.
growth
If
cycle.
the trees are having fruit, bearing fruit all
Yeah.
over them, and
Yeah.
you know,
And the grass is real brilliant green.
right?
But generally,
No.
I would think that a garden would be a really positive image, would be a
Yes.
place you'd like to go to and spend time in. And maybe you're just hanging out in a garden because that's where you want to be.
Yes.
I mean, it could just be that
It
simple.
could be that
Yep.
simple, yeah.
You just want to hang out in a garden for a while.
A little rest
like
and
what-
and
yeah.
relaxation.
Yeah,
It's like sometimes a cigar is just a cigar.
that's right.
Cigars
There's a lot
and
of-
dreams.
Yeah, cigars and dreams. Maybe we shouldn't go there.
not go there.
Let's not go there, yeah. And doors, what about door? That's an interesting one. Is the door opening?
Or is the door locked? Or is the door barred? Or is the
Yeah.
door beautiful and
Yeah.
wide opening? Do you see a garden beyond the door, the
Yeah,
open
what
door?
color is the door?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
Is it
I
in
would
good
think, very
condition? Yeah.
individual.
A door seems
Yeah.
a little bit like the idea of Pandora's box.
yeah.
You know,
it
what's on the
does.
other side of the door.
Yes.
does.
You know,
I
so
like
there's
that.
always like you're not quite sure what's on the other side of the door.
So maybe
Yeah.
you're crossing a threshold. Maybe you're going through a change.
Right.
Maybe it's an opportunity opening for you. Maybe that door is barred, or you feel that an opportunity is barred for you, and you need to maybe examine that. The left side of your brain is responsible for logical, rational, and analytical thought, whereas the right side considers in a more subjective, creative, and intuitive way. If you want to develop your psychic abilities, it's important to stimulate and develop those instinctive processes. There are lots of techniques for this, but one of the easiest is simply to look up at the clouds, the way you did when you were a kid, and let your thoughts roam free in daydreams. Mark Twain said, "The castle-building habit, the daydreaming habit, how it grows, what a luxury it becomes, how we fly to its enchantments at every idle moment, how we revel in them, steep our souls in them, intoxicate ourselves with their beguiling fantasies. We all daydream, one way or another. Worry, for example, is a form of negative daydream in which we envision unwanted events, such as accidents and other misfortunes, happening to us or those we love. It has been said that worrying is praying for what you don't want. By repeatedly visualizing these events, they're more likely to come true. However, you can use daydreams as a technique to visualize what you do want and hope to happen. It's said that many athletes, musicians, and business leaders use daydreams to envision success. They anticipate or imagine landing that perfect jump, closing that deal, or making that hit single. Tiger Woods, for example, has said he uses daydreams to improve his golf game. See yourself doing whatever makes you happy. Perhaps you see yourself briskly walking for exercise and eating only healthy foods. Maybe you're laughing and enjoying an evening with friends. You may visualize emotional control, mastering a tough project, or easily recovering from surgery. Be sure to daydream about playing, relaxing, and having fun too. Include those things. Not all of your images have to include accomplishing a goal. Create a healthy balance for your life through the use of positive visualization or daydreams. A fun tool for developing psychic ability through daydreaming is called the money game. I love this game, it's really fun. There's no real money involved, this is just for fun. There are 2 rules. You double your money every day, and you have to spend it all every day. On day 1, you have $1. Spend it in your imagination. It's pretty easy to do, right? You buy a cup of coffee and you're done. The next day you have $2. So in your imagination, you buy your friend a cup of coffee too. The next day you have $4, then $8, then $16, then $32. Keep this up for a while and you'll have umpteen $million that you'll have to spend each and every day. Believe it or not, this simple game can powerfully challenge your imagination. These types of fantasies are important because they can help us to create a more positive and powerful inner world, which, as you know, is the first step toward creating a more positive and powerful outer world, as well as opening to the power of the miraculous, which is a vital tool in psychic development.
What about dreams that we have over and over again? I've had recurring dreams.
Sure.
And there's one, I had a weird one when I was a kid, and I'll just bring up, I just remembered this. I had the flying dream a lot when I was a kid, and for me it felt great because I didn't have the happiest childhood. And then another dream that I had, this is really weird, I had these glasses on, and when I wore the glasses I couldn't see. And for some reason they were stuck to my face and I couldn't get them off. And I had that dream a lot, like over, many times. I haven't for years, but isn't that?
Yeah, something about a different vision or needing a different vision or a vision being forced on you.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Point of view.
That could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
We're talking about different kinds of things like recurring dreams and themes that come to us in our dreams. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the goddess. I mentioned the goddess before in association with the ocean. And this is also a little bit about premonition, dreams of premonition. And it's not a particular event for me, but these premonition dreams for me were about a whole different way of life. Because I'm an astrologer. I've been doing astrology for about 20 years. And with astrology, you're working with the gods and the goddesses. The planets are named after gods and goddesses, Venus and Mars and Jupiter and Neptune. And I had this dream. This is many years ago. This was before I was an astrologer. It was actually about 2 years before I became introduced to astrology. And I went back to my childhood home, which was in Levittown, Pennsylvania. And I was walking the streets, and it was a night sky, and it was beautiful, the stars, moon. And I'm just walking along the street by myself, and all of a sudden, this planet comes soaring out of the sky right in front of my face. And this is Venus, was like proclaimed. And I woke up, and I woke up, and not to be disrespectful, but I was like, who cares? I didn't care. I didn't know anything about the goddess. I wasn't doing astrology. I wasn't into the planets. Basically, I was like, who cares? Well, of course, a couple of years later, Venus became very important to me for many reasons, for my life as an astrologer as well as the work I do with the goddess energy. Another circumstance was where I had a dream. This was many years later. I was doing astrology, but I had never heard of Chiron. And Chiron is a planetoid, a small planet, that we now use in astrology, called the wounded healer. I had not worked with Chiron. I didn't know who Chiron was. And I had a dream that I was in a tower, a tall tower, and there was a spiral staircase, and all these people were on horseback going up the spiral staircase. And I was kind of at the bottom, not on a horse, just kind of watching everything, and all of a sudden, this centaur came up to me, and he talked to me. We had this in-depth conversation for like a half an hour, of course, which I remember nothing consciously. It went in somewhere. We had this huge conversation, and about 8 months later, I learned about Chiron, and I learned that Chiron is very important in my own chart, and I use Chiron all the time, the wounded healer. And so I had this dream and this actual conversation with Chiron before I ever worked with him in terms of astrology. These are very powerful dreams, and they're significant dreams that have stayed with me throughout my life. These dreams are 15, 20 years ago. Another dream that I had was kind of an odd dream. Someone presented me with a pin, and the pin was of the goddess Athena, and she was riding a purple bear. And again, it was really kind of before my goddess work, so I didn't really know who Athena was. I wasn't very familiar with her. And of course, it turns out to be very interesting. Athena is a warrior goddess, and she's about courage and leadership. And riding the purple bear, of course, that's, doesn't fit together, but the bear, is, in terms of animal totems, is a very powerful animal in this part of the world. And purple is the color of spirituality. And it's just a really nice
that's
image.
so cool.
And
Wow.
yeah, and the
Beautiful.
idea of being presented with a pin, it was almost like receiving a merit or something, So that had a really nice feeling to it.
Those are some powerful dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the last goddess dream that I'll talk about is just, here's where symbols come in, where it may not, you may have to think about it a little bit. But this dream was just that where I live in Keene, New Hampshire, there were peacocks going up and down the street. You know how beautiful peacocks are, but it was really, again, out of context with these beautiful peacocks with their tails, spread and looking all gorgeous, walking up and down Main Street. And it took me just a little bit to think about what this meant. And a peacock is very much one of the goddess's birds. And in particular, Venus and Juno and Ocean, who is an African goddess, all rule the peacock. So I just really looked at it as having good feminine goddess energy coming into Keene, and I just loved it. It was very
that's
uplifting,
beautiful.
very
Yeah.
uplifting.
You have some great dreams.
Yeah, you do.
You do, yeah.
Thank you. I love dreams.
Yeah, I think those were really kind of, not really precognitive, but almost gifts to you about what you were,
Yeah.
what was coming for you
You're right.
on your life's path.
That's right, they
Yeah,
were.
that's really beautiful.
Yeah, thank
Great,
you.
yeah. Wow, thank you for sharing those.
Mm.
Something else that comes up in dreams too is animals, and you mentioned the peacock.
That's right.
Which is sort of the beginning of that, but there are other animals that come up in dreams that can have meanings, and some of them have kind of basic meanings, but they can also be different, again, from person to person. For example, the dog, usually symbolizes loyalty and devotion, but for someone who's afraid of dogs, and there are people like that who have never been around
yes.
dogs.
Sure.
I've known people that are almost like, oh my God, keep the dog away from me.
Yes, or who have been bit by a
Or
dog.
have had a dog bite, and,
Yeah.
and so for someone like that, dreaming of a dog could be really threatening.
Sure.
Whereas someone else, a dog would be, comforting, or a really nice thing. And dreaming of, I'm thinking of something else, an owl, which is something that I consider kind of a totem for me that I had a very powerful experience with, which I'm not going to get into now. But dreaming of an owl, I guess in some Native American tribes, believe that the owl is a portent of death.
Oh.
That it can be, but also some people believe that it's a symbol of wisdom.
The wise old owl.
Yeah. So for me, it's about wisdom and protection. But I guess that would depend on your, how you felt about it.
Well, speaking of
You
that,
had
how
animal
you feel
dreams?
about it.
Yeah.
I know I don't often have animal dreams, but I would look at the context in which the dream is occurring, in which the encounter with the animal is occurring.
What was
is
your
it-
interaction, if any? or-
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is it a wild animal, a ferocious animal? Is it
Yeah.
a bear chasing you down Main Street? Then maybe you're feeling kind of anxious about things. You're feeling uncertain about
I would
yourself
say
and
you probably
anxious, or are they
Yeah.
peacocks,
Right.
beautiful peacocks
Right.
parading back and forth for your pleasure? So the context, I would think, is
It's really important.
really important.
In
Yeah.
shamanism, sometimes your power animal will come to you initially in a very ferocious manner.
Uh-huh.
And it's like you have to go through kind of an initiation with the animal, and gradually your relationship may change. But, so even a dream that scares us, or even a ferocious animal, may turn out to be our ally. And that's something we always have to keep in mind too. And that's why it's so great to work with your dreams even when they frighten you.
Great.
That's
Yeah.
Great.
good.
We're going to be
That's
talking
true.
about that later
Yes.
too. That's
We will.
wonderful.
Another interesting one is, this is an animal that's probably not considered very powerful, but mice, or squirrels actually. I was just thinking about squirrels, how they collect things, how they
Oh yeah,
store
harvest
things.
for the
yeah,
winter.
and they put things, they're very organized and they store food. So it could be, if you dream about a squirrel, I guess it could mean that maybe you need to get more organized, or maybe if you're someone who's too organized, and I'm also a little bit anal about it, then maybe you need to let go a little bit and relax. For me, it would mean that I need to get more organized. But so there are many animal dreams that we can have, and also, I don't usually dream about animals unless it's an animal that I've had several dreams about animals who have passed over. You know, animals that we've had.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that
Sure,
were
I dream about little mom.
that I
rips
felt were
your house-
visitations.
rips your
my
heart
little
out.
Molly, yeah.
It's hard. It's comforting though. Yeah. So, what about lucid dreams? That's a whole different
Now, what is a
topic.
lucid dream?
Yeah, maybe Stella can shed some light on that.
The word lucid is associated with light, right? Clarity. But anyway,
Yeah.
lucid.
Lucia.
Yeah, Lucia,
Yeah,
which is
Lucia,
light,
it
right?
is.
That's right.
Yeah, see, you're a walking
It's the
Lucia
Italian
lucid.
light. Yeah,
That would be
you're
nice.
watching Lucia dreams then.
The basis of lucid dreams is that it's connected to me, it's connected to consciousness and the realization that we have choice. And most lucid dreams bring us exhilaration. It's like a different state of consciousness. In a lucid dream, you are aware that you are dreaming. And sometimes we'll be in the middle of a dream or whatever, and we go, oh, this must be a dream or something like that. But we quickly fall back into the dream state. In a lucid dream, you are aware that you're dreaming, and then you try to stay with that awareness, and then you basically can do what you want in the dream. It can be used for in many different ways. I talked about lucid dreams in our last show, but I'm still going to repeat the same dream. It's not long. Of my particular lucid dreaming experience, I was driving to Amherst, Massachusetts, and it was summertime, and it started to snow. And in dreaming, one of the ways that you can kick your lucidity in is when you realize that something is out of context. Snow and summer do not go together, and you're like, am I dreaming? Well, that's like a first step. Well, I kept getting these like little clues, and finally I was in this large building, and I realized that I was dreaming. And to prove it, it's good to prove it to yourself, I decided I was going to jump up and touch the ceiling. And I did. I jumped up and touched the ceiling. And when you realize that you can do things that you can't do in normal consciousness, it's very freeing. And a lot of people use lucid dreams to fly. That's a very common dream experience because it's something we all, kind of long for in a way. One of my lucid dreams was actually quite amusing. I called it Mechanics of a Flying Carpet because I was in space, kind of floating in space, and this oriental carpet appeared in front of me, and it was being explained how it worked, how this flying carpet worked. I just thought that was a great image.
How the magic works?
Yes.
You have to
Well,
tell us about
how you
that
fly
later.
with it.
Oh, how to use the carpet.
How it actually works.
I
You
see
know?
how you
So it
steer
came with
it.
Yeah.
instructions.
Okay.
Yeah, it comes with instructions.
Instructions. That's cool.
Instructions.
Yeah.
That's right.
Dream.
And the
An
last,
engineer dream.
the last program.
I like that.
The last program, one of the men I worked with told me that he realized that he didn't realize, but he had been lucid dreaming his whole life, that he never had a word for it, and now he does. And
Wow.
what he often does in a lucid dream is goes back to a childhood favorite place, a place where he really loved being as a child, and he flies from tree to tree, and he just like hangs out in the sky and the trees, and it's always very rejuvenating for him, as you can
Sounds
imagine.
wonderful.
It
Right.
does.
So, there's a great book on lucid dreaming, if it's still in print. It's Stephen LaBarge, Lucid Dreaming. And, if you go into the bookstore, there's a zillion books on dreams, and they're really worthwhile. You can get so much out of reading a book. But he goes into really some of the techniques to develop lucid dreaming, which, one of the most common techniques is just when you're falling asleep, remind yourself that you want to wake up while you're dreaming, that you want to stay awake. So that's some of the interesting experiences that I've heard and had about lucid dreaming.
Lucid dreaming is a very interesting,
yeah.
I think an empowering
I have never done it.
phenomenon.
Have you done it?
I have.
You have.
I have had
Yeah.
dreams in which I become aware that I'm dreaming and can then control events and can just do whatever I want, which is really fun. It's just very, makes you feel very powerful because you're dreaming, so you can fly and do whatever you want to do.
Right.
So it's just an exercise in empowerment for
And
me.
choice.
And choice, yeah.
That's a huge
Sounds
thing.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Empowerment and choice.
Also, there are creative dreams. There are dreams in which we receive creative guidance, creative inspiration. I think that those are really interesting. And I looked up a couple of examples of famous dreams. These are people we can all relate to. We all know these people. We've heard of these people.
Yeah.
And I thought you might enjoy hearing some of these. For
are
example,
fun.
you know the song Blue Suede Shoes? Don't step on my blue suede shoes?
Yeah.
Came in a dream. Supposedly, Carl Perkins, who wrote that dream, was at a gig with Johnny Cash. And they were lined up for the food, for the buffet, I guess, after they had performed. And let me see exactly what this. And they heard someone down the line on the buffet, "Don't step on my shoes."
Oh, that's great.
And so then, and Johnny Cash said, "Hey, you know that's a great title for a song." Then Carl Perkins went to sleep that night, and he dreamt that these two people were dancing, and the guy was saying, "Don't step on my blue suede shoes," and he got the song.
Yeah.
And so he just woke up and wrote it down. Did he give it to I'm not really a
Music.
not that kind of music,
Right.
sort of, whatever genre that is. Anyway, he turned the song over to Elvis. So I guess Elvis made
That's
the song
right,
famous.
And they're blue.
And they're blue.
Yeah.
Today's our blue day.
Yeah.
Today's definitely
Everything is blue
day.
today.
Everything
Yeah.
is blue today. Yes, and so he turned it over to Elvis, and the rest is history. And I guess everybody knows that the book Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's
Yes.
famous book Frankenstein,
Yeah.
came to her in a dream. This was in the summer of 1816. She was 19 years old. She was with her lover, the poet Percy Shelley, whom she married later that year. They were visiting the poet Lord Byron at his villa beside Lake Geneva in Switzerland. And there was stormy weather, so they couldn't go out. They couldn't get out and about, and they had nothing to do. And so, all being writers and geniuses, Byron said, "Let's all write ghost stories to entertain each other." And this is the story that she dreamed. The story we know of as Frankenstein is the story that she dreamed. I actually have a quote here from the introduction to the book in which she credits the dream. And she says that soon as she fell asleep, she started dreaming the story, and she just wrote it down. And she says she only made a transcript of the dream. That's the novel Frankenstein. It's simply a transcript of her dream.
Wonderful.
Wow,
So that was
great.
obviously a nightmare. But I guess she was
I guess
thinking
so,
about, gee,
yeah.
I need to write a ghost story. I need to
Right.
write some sort of story.
she got
And
inspired.
that's what she was given. So, creative dreams come to all of us. Those are a few famous ones.
So, after hearing all that, about all those famous people having creative dreams, I think it brings up the question of, how does that happen? How does that work? And I think there are a couple of different things. I think it can happen in a number of ways. And I think it's probably happened to some of you who are watching, that you may have had creative dreams. Maybe you dreamt about a project at work or something that you were going to sew or crochet or paint, or maybe something that you were writing. It could be any number of things. But back to the question about how that happens. And I think one way to look at it is that I think that the creative idea could actually be in your own subconscious, and you just haven't really been able to access it while you were awake. And so it comes out while you're dreaming, when you're much more open to things. And so it comes out then. Another way of looking at it, which I think is certainly a possibility, is that it could be coming from the divine, or from spirit, whatever you call that. It could be coming from that kind of a source. So it could be something, where in a way you're sort of acting as a channel for receiving this creative idea or creative vision. Okay, so to sum it up, I think that those two ways are probably the major ways that creative dreams happen. But I think that there are probably many other ways that they could happen. And maybe you have an idea yourself. What do you think? It's something to think about.
And speaking of creativity, I get a lot of creative ideas through my dreams or in different kinds of ways. And I had this dream, and connecting dreams back from the past. What I do is I keep a dream title book, believe it or not, where I have different years, and I just write down the titles. And the reason I do this is because it helps me to go back to the past, the way I did with the Venus dream and the Chiron dream, and see when I dreamed them, and it helps me to put a lot of pieces together. You have to be a real dream junkie to do this, but I am. So recently, like a few weeks ago, I had this dream, and the bottom line is that I had this baby in my arms, and babies a lot of times represent new growth, or new beginnings. And I had it swaddled, and I was running, or there's some kind of adventure. And I checked, and here the baby had gotten fabric in its mouth, and the baby was turning blue.
Ooh. Oh my God.
So I got the fabric out, and it was lacking air. And I managed, it was fine, the baby survived, and everything was fine. But I woke up, and it was really had a nightmarish quality to it, and I really didn't even want to think about it that much. But I did. I wrote it down. And then I was doing some other research work, which required me to go back to 1987. And I went back, and I looked at my dreams, and I found this dream, this goddess dream from 1987 called Woman in Blue, A Visit from Juno. And Juno is another goddess. It turns out, I didn't know this, I researched this just a couple of days ago, it turns out that she is a protector of children. And I had this pile of blue yarns sitting in front of me,
Blue again.
waiting to become a goddess shawl. I hadn't found a goddess yet that I wanted to work with. And so, obviously, I thought about the baby turning blue, and goddess Juno being this woman in blue. And so I decided to create this shawl. And Juno also is very interesting because we're all familiar with the word genius, and originally genius meant a man's soul, and Juno was a woman's soul.
Oh.
But we lost Juno, and we kept genius.
Lost the divine feminine.
Yeah.
And we don't think of genius as being associated with the soul either. We think of genius as being associated with the intellect. So that's just kind of an interesting side thing. But Juno is also called the Queen of Heaven. And so this is the shawl that I just made recently and just finished.
Gorgeous.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
Love it.
Oh, I love those colors.
So this really helps me in terms of my own energy towards that baby turning blue. What is it? What project am I stifling or suffocating? Or maybe it's my own woman's soul. I mean, you can think of all kinds of different ways to think of it. But it's just one of the ways that your dream images can flow right out of you into reality. And it's a very important thing to understand that. The other way that I've worked with dreams is through collage. And this collage is representing a recurring dream that I have where I'm in a building protected, one wall is glass, and right at the glass is the ocean. So I have full view of the ocean, but I'm being protected at the same time. And it's such a powerful dream. It's a recurring dream. It happens for me quite a lot, actually, and in all kinds of different ways. But so I created this collage just as a visual reminder of that dream and the power that it has for me. When you think about what we talked about, what the ocean represents, the ocean is a powerful force for us, and we can use that force, that energy, in really wonderful ways. And so that's another way that I use creativity in dreams.
It's wonderful.
That is.
I love it.
Yeah. Beautiful.
My intention is to create a whole book where I take my favorite dreams and create a collage next to them representing the dream.
What a wonderful project.
It
Yes.
is, yeah.
I mean,
And
just a creative project and one that will, wonderful for self-exploration.
Exactly.
For expression, self-expression. That's a great project.
And if you're not a visual person, I'm not a visual person. I don't see images in my head. My dreams are a way for me to experience those visions. And so for me, it's just, I just love it, you know.
That may be one
Yeah.
reason why you are so attuned to your dreams.
Yes.
Yeah, so you can get that.
That's where you
Right.
get
Yeah.
the visual
That's what I'm
images.
lacking.
Because I'm really visual, and not, you said that
Can't
you
imagine you
Right.
hear
lacking
things,
anything.
hear.
Right.
Yeah,
Clairaudient.
yeah. Wow.
So we wanted to talk about some metaphors that sometimes people, or symbols people think of as
Negative?
negative.
Yeah,
put that in
negative
quotes.
dreams. Yeah. There are some really kind of, I think, common ones, or universal ones that many people have had. One of them is, being somewhere in public and being either maybe half undressed or in your underwear.
Suddenly realizing
Yeah.
your jeans aren't there.
Yeah, like, oh my God, maybe you're outside sitting on a bed or walking down the street or someplace or in school or at work. But there was one interesting thing, I think it came up that Mike brought up yesterday, actually, talking about that when you have that dream, and this is true for me too, that usually when you have that dream, nobody really, gasps or goes like,
Nobody
oh my
cares.
God,
No.
look at that. People
Yeah.
are just kind of walking by. and
Patty's
they're not,
naked. I mean,
Yeah.
in
They're
the
just-
dream, nobody cares.
They don't. It's like they're not
Nobody
aware of it.
notices.
Like it's nothing unusual
Yeah, they don't
about
notice.
it. At least in my experience.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I don't know
think
if there
that's
are
pretty universal.
some
So
people
what do
have,
you think that means?
Yeah.
What do you think that, does it mean you're making yourself vulnerable? You're afraid to make yourself vulnerable? There's something you need to reveal?
probably
I
all
mean,
of those things.
Maybe
You know,
all of those
there's
things.
many
But
different
I think
ways
it
we
means
can
that it's
look
really
at
about
it.
Different
yourself.
things at
It's
different
about how
times.
you feel about
Right.
yourself. It's
Maybe you
not-
feel exposed.
It's subjective. It's not objective.
That's right.
That it's not coming from other people. Other
Yes.
people aren't saying, "Hey, you're inadequate." It's about you saying to yourself,
Right.
"I'm inadequate in some
Right.
way," or "I'm insecure."
or you're afraid that people will see something about you that you don't want them to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or that
Yeah.
maybe that maybe there's a secret
Yeah.
Right.
that you're afraid will
Well,
come
any
out.
of
And
those
it could be
things, I
so
would
many
think.
different things.
Mhm.
Or just feeling insecure.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be
Mm-hmm.
a lot of things. But it's an interesting one. I think a lot of people watching have probably had that dream or something very similar.
Something like it.
Something
yeah.
like it. Then there's a falling thing, which is classic. I call that like the classic
I have
dream.
never had that dream.
I have.
I don't want to
Yeah.
have it.
I have never
I don't like that.
had
I don't like that dream.
I want the falling
Yeah.
dream to turn into a flying dream if it happens.
Oh,
that would
and
be
you
great.
could do it.
Right.
Yeah,
You'd become
lucid
aware and say,
dreaming.
"Wait a
Right.
second."
Wait a minute, I'm going to fly instead.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
So falling, I guess, would be the opposite of flying. That would mean you're feeling insecure, unstable, anxious. Those sorts of things. How would you feel if you were falling off a cliff? Not
Yeah.
too hot.
Panicky.
No, yeah,
Panicky,
panicky.
yeah, not
or
too happy.
or scared, afraid of losing your footing,
Mm-hmm.
literally and and
Being out of your
figuratively.
depth, that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Not a good dream.
I would think being pursued, again, would be, again, just distill it down to the emotion. If you were being pursued by a monster chasing you down Main Street, you're feeling anxious. So if you get just sort of the general feeling, if you're dreaming about a test, that you're unprepared for a test, that's one that I used to have. I don't have it anymore, but I used to have that when I was younger.
And that could be about
Right.
feeling inadequate,
Feeling inadequate,
feeling that you
unprepared,
don't know enough
Mhm.
or something.
or that you're being put to the test.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I was
You're
thinking.
being tested, and
Yeah.
you resent that, or
You resent
don't
it, or you feel like you don't measure up
right,
somehow.
you don't measure up. Yeah.
Is
So
that-
what can you do to work with
Yeah.
these nightmares? So let's call them nightmares, because
Yeah.
that's usually what they feel like. What can you do to work with that, or is there anything you can
Yeah.
do? What do you think, Stella?
Oh, I've been holding dream groups for many, many years, and there's lots of
should
things
go
you
to
can
one.
do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the most important thing about your nightmare, even I want to push my nightmares aside. I mean, sometimes they're so extreme, you wake up crying or
I've had that
screaming, or
before.
your heart is pounding. I mean, it's amazing to me how involved your body can be in a nightmare.
Have you ever had the experience when you wake up from that kind of a dream, and for a couple of minutes you're awake, but you think that it really happened?
Oh, sure.
Oh my God, that is such, and then it's such a
Yeah.
sense of
Relief.
amazing relief, and you're like, oh my God, it was
just
only a
dreaming.
dream. Oh, thank God. Oh.
Yeah.
But one of the
Yeah.
most important things in working with nightmares is to share your nightmare. Talk about it to someone. Find a friend. If you don't have anybody to talk about it to, write it down. And then there's all kinds of different dream exercises you can do. Like Patty was talking about her recurring dream as a child. And I just feel like, you know, if you have an opportunity to express it, a lot of times it won't come back. A nightmare is your subconscious calling out for attention that something is wrong. And if you just ignore it, you're not giving it the attention it needs. There's different dream exercises you can do, and I'm actually going to take a minute and read a couple of these.
Oh, good.
One is working through conflict in the dream. And so the questions are, what are the conflicts or the issues or the unresolved situations in the dream? So first of all, you're just answering, what is the conflict about? And then, what are the positive symbols or resolutions in the dream? Is there a symbol in the dream that's positive? Is there a resolution? If not, you don't have one. That's okay. And then, would any of the positive symbols aid in resolving the conflict? In other words, could you bring the positive and the negative together? If not, you can make up a positive symbol to aid you. Whatever you can do is fine. You're in control, you're awake now, and you can change the dream. It's a really wonderful thing to understand that you have a choice now. And I can't tell you how helpful it is in your life to work with your nightmares in this way. I'm actually going to read one dream that I worked with in this way, which is rewriting the dream. You're taking your nightmare and you're turning it into almost like a mythology or a story. So you are allowed to change the ending. And here is my story. I'm in a barn, a place traditionally meant to house animals. I feel comfortable. I'm feeding by hand a beautiful horse. I finish and start to wander around the barn, checking it out. I begin to discover, less domesticated and tame beasts, lions and other animals who could harm me. In a dark corner, I come across a hideous monster, not fully animal or human. I am petrified. I think and act quickly, throwing the monster some food to distract or appease it, and then run for my life. I wake up. I still did not have a resolution. I was not pleased with this ending. I changed the ending. I see the monster. It is not beautiful, but hideous and scary. But I treat the monster as if it were the beautiful horse. With caution and respect, I hold my hand out with the food, just as I was feeding the horse. One touch, and as usual, we fall into the state of love. This is what has happened to me over and over again.
Oh, that's great.
Sometimes
wonderful.
I'm
Yeah.
actually in a dream, but the minute I make physical contact with my monster, and usually it's like this or like this, it's the lightest contact, and always the minute I do that, we both fall into a state of love.
Wow.
So you can take your nightmares, your monsters, what we view as hideous, and work with them and appreciate them for what they are. Nightmares can bring us great gifts. I'd also like to tell another nightmare that really to me illustrates how our nightmares can be gifts. And in this one, I was upstairs in my home in what I call my goddess space, really beautiful. In the dream, I'm in that space and I'm there alone. And all of a sudden, I hear these footsteps coming up the stairs. And you know, that makes you nervous right away, right? I hear these footsteps coming up the stairs. And all of a sudden, at the top of the stairs, around the bend, comes this little man carrying two baggages, suitcases, in his one in each hand. And he has got an attitude, and he is mad. And he comes stomping over to me with these two suitcases, and he is so nasty. I mean, he's small, but he is nasty. And I'm like, oh man, right? And
That nasty little man.
Yeah, he gets right in my face, and I start screaming at him. You know, I'm like gonna attack. He's attacking me, I'm attacking back. And as I'm attacking, I'm going, this isn't working. This doesn't work anymore. I hope I'm dreaming. And I woke up. So I thought, okay, it's another dream. I kind of want to ignore that one. I can't tell you, it was really terrifying. And I wanted to ignore it, but I didn't. And I thought about it, and I thought, well, you know, this way of when someone attacks us of being confrontative back or attacking back just really isn't working. It's not working for me. It's not working in our world in general. And so I thought the message was really about, you know, to try to find a different way if you're attacked, to try to find a different way to respond rather than react out of fear and attack back. So I had that in place, and that felt really good. Well, 2 or 3 days later, another meaning popped right into my head. We talk about the intuition. It was wonderful because it just went like boom. And the meaning is that when we are carrying our baggage, we become small-spirited and mean. And carrying our baggage, is that lovely?
Great.
Can
It's
everybody
great.
relate
Yes.
to that, right?
Absolutely.
Now, that is a gift from a nightmare.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we all have baggage. We're all carrying baggage from our past lives, childhood, first relationship, second relationship, you know, on and on. We all have baggage. And when we go into anything with that baggage, then we become angry and hostile. You know, we have to resolve, we have to deal with the baggage. And if we go into a situation carrying that old baggage from the past, it's usually not going to be good.
It's going to crawl right up into
Wow,
your
that's
goddess
amazing.
space.
That's
right
right.
into your
Yeah.
upstairs.
It's really going to intrude. Yeah.
And intrude.
That's right.
It's great.
That's
That's
right.
wonderful.
So that was just
That's
like
a
a
great
little
one.
gem. That was a gem.
That's really
Yeah.
profound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you feel
I like
like
that.
hugging that little man
Yes.
and saying
Blowing him
thank you.
kisses. I'll blow him.
Thank
You stay
thank you.
there.
Yeah.
I still don't want you in my face.
Don't come in. Just thank you anyway. Okay, another kind of dream that's really interesting, and that I don't know how many people have these. I suspect that everyone has probably had one at some point in their lives. Are precognitive dreams. It's when you dream about something that hasn't happened yet, and then, you know, in your real waking life, and then it does happen. And it could be something very personal to you in your life, or about someone that you know, or some people actually, like Lori, have dreams about,
Yes.
you know, big world events. They just don't know. Like with Lori, I think she dreamed about 9/11, but
She
she
did.
didn't know.
She did.
She didn't know where it was.
Right.
And I think you know, there are other people that have dreamt about that sort of thing. But often it is something, you know, in your own life, or your own life experience. I had one probably about 12 years ago. Our daughter was living in San Francisco at the time, and in my dream, it was really a kind of a nightmare. It was not a good dream, but I dreamt that somebody was in her apartment and they had a gun, and this person for some reason was acting like a jackass. I mean, they were basically just, you know, playing, not trying to hurt anybody, but feeling that they were really macho and cool because they had a gun.
Playing
Right.
around
Yeah,
with
playing
it.
around with it, fooling around, and there was it accidentally went off, and my daughter was injured. I mean, she didn't die, but she was really injured.
In reality.
No, in the dream.
In the dream, okay,
In the dream. And so for some reason I felt really freaked out. So I called her, and she was saying to me, "Mom, you know, I've never even seen a gun." She said, "I don't know anybody that has a gun, and I can't imagine that anybody with a gun would be coming into my apartment." And so she said, "I really, don't worry about it." And then 3 days later, I got a call from her saying that someone came up with someone that she and her boyfriend knew, but that with a friend of a friend or something,
Right.
that they didn't really know very well, and he had a gun. And he took it out and he was playing, and she
Oh,
freaked out, and she
man.
said,
Yeah.
"You need to leave right now, you need to get out."
Yeah.
Which she would have said anyway,
Wow.
because she was always afraid of guns,
Wow.
like I am. But she was really freaked out by the dream. She was thinking, maybe if I hadn't have done that, you know, as soon as I did, maybe that would have happened.
So she
But it was-
profited from your
So she-
precognitive dream.
Yeah, so she managed to avoid
Wow.
something. You know, which if she had waited maybe even 3 more minutes, maybe it would have, you know, that would have happened.
So that probably came about because of the connection, the deep connection between
Yeah.
mother and child and
Yeah,
daughter.
and you know, worrying about her
And loving her.
and loving her,
Mhm,
yeah,
being
and we're very
connected
close.
to her.
So that was not a pleasant one. Well, actually, it was a relief when that.
Wow,
I was like,
that was a
oh, I'm
gift.
so glad that that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, you must want
Yeah.
to call people up all the time and warn them.
Yeah.
Hey, this dream! Oh no!
That's the only one I've really had. Well, I've had
Aw.
it that I can really recall.
Yeah.
I haven't had a lot of those. Have you,
Yeah.
either of
No,
you?
no,
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
no.
That was
I
the
do
only
know
one.
of other people who have talked about and have asked me, what do I do when I have a precognitive dream? That's a pretty scary thing. That's a responsibility.
How
It
do you know
is.
it's precognitive?
Right. Well, you feel like it is. See, that's
Yeah,
what
see, I felt like this one
that's
was.
yeah, and that's what
Yeah.
I've heard, that these people feel like this is really going to happen. You know, so it puts a big responsibility
Sure
on the
does.
person.
And the
And
other
to me,
thing-
it's like you need
yeah.
to do exactly what you did.
Well, the other
Yeah.
thing that's-
Share it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, talk to the person.
And she thought it sounded really crazy. It was like, I don't know people that have guns, and I can't imagine anybody coming here with a gun. She just couldn't. She said, she said, I really know that you're worried, and I appreciate your calling, but I don't see that happening. So she was
Right.
pretty freaked out because it was really out of her, not part of her world. I mean, being around people like that. I'd like to thank you all for watching. We certainly have had fun. We've had a
We had a
good
great
time,
time.
and it's very interesting talking about dreams. I hope it was interesting for you.
And enlightening.
And enlightening, and sweet dreams to everyone out there.
Sweet dreams.